gentlemen, please, a rousing applause for Mr. Tan Jise.
Friends and fellow Singaporeans, good evening. Thank you very much for coming out to hear me and my guest speakers. Tonight is the one night I am permitted to hold this mass rally to talk to you in person. I shall use this opportunity to explain to you why I seek this office of the President and what I intend to achieve on your behalf. Tonight, I will walk with you through the history of our past presidents. We must know where we came from, and only then will we know where we are heading. Our first president was Encik Yusof bin Ishak. He was a good president who fought for the independence of Singapore. He was a ceremonial president, a man of the people, and a freedom fighter. When he died, he was given a state funeral and buried at Kranji State Cemetery. Our second president was Dr. Benjamin Sheares, a much respected ceremonial president and an eminent doctor. The Sheares Bridge is named for him. He was a very popular president and cared deeply for the people, but unfortunately, he died rather early. Our third president was Mr. Devan Nair, another freedom fighter who was jailed by the colonial government and set free in 1959 when the PAP took power. He worked hard for the people and launched the NTUC. As a trade unionist, he was a street fighter. And when he was elevated to the presidency, he continued to speak up for various causes. And this was where he overstepped his ceremonial role. He was then labeled an alcoholic and removed from office. Mr. Wee Kim Wee succeeded Mr. Devan Nair. As a journalist and diplomat with no political base, he nevertheless succeeded in becoming the people's president. Our first elected president was Mr. Ong Teng Cheong, former DPM, who took the custodial role of the presidency very seriously. He asked for information on the reserves, but was turned down and told it took too many man-years for the information to be churned out. Why did they not just use more men to process the information? That was his first falling out with the PAP government that he worked for so many years. When he died of cancer, he was not accorded a state funeral. President Nathan became our president for 12 years. He was the only candidate in both presidential elections and walked in with our contest due to the decision of the Presidential Elections Committee. As an ex-civil servant without a political base, he fulfilled the role of a ceremonial president, but lightly exercised his custodial powers vis-a-vis the reserves and key appointments in specified state organizations. We cannot overly fault him because the way that the elected presidency is structured required him to take counsel from the appointed wise men in the presidential council on the one hand and the government on the other. If he disagrees with their advice, his veto will have to go to the government, and the latter can overturn his veto by a 2/3 vote in Parliament. In the past, the President was appointed by the Prime Minister. But 20 years ago, the Constitution was amended to enable the people to elect the President directly. This was a fundamental change. The purpose of direct election is to give moral authority to the President to perform his duty of providing checks and balances on the government. 5 key areas are specified in the Constitution: national reserves, key appointments, detentions under the Internal Security Act, investigations by the Corrupt Practices Investigation Bureau, and restraining orders in connection with the maintenance of religious harmony. The President has the power of veto over the government in these 5 areas. All 5 areas are important, but I will focus for my discussion on the first 2 to show how they affect the day-to-day life of Singaporeans. The President should and will exercise his veto power if he believes that the government is trying to raid the reserves and spend them extravagantly on unnecessary projects. This is your money, and if the government requires it, I, as President, will make sure that it is well spent on meaningful projects that benefit Singaporeans directly, such as schools and hospitals. On key appointments, I will scrutinize the background and track record of all government appointees who come before me for confirmation. I will ensure that only true talented Singaporeans are appointed, who are motivated by a sense of public service and not by huge financial rewards. Reappointments will also be subject to the same scrutiny. Only such a system of intense scrutiny will ensure the integrity and independence of key institutions such as the civil service, the judiciary, and investment agencies. Singaporeans deserve this, as their daily lives and savings are at stake. For too long, you have been accustomed to the idea that the President has a limited ceremonial and diplomatic role. But then why the need for an elected presidency with such a generous salary? I believe a president acting with courage has real powers under our Constitution. In seeking the presidency, I am not motivated by personal ambition or monetary gain. As an ex-civil servant, I have always been driven by public service. Rather than receiving over $25 million for 6 years, I intend to return the bulk of the president's pay to the people if I am elected. Let me now briefly speak in Bahasa Mandarin before coming back to speak in English again. Salam sejahtera Singapura. seperti yang Anda telah tahu di antara 4 calon yang bertanding kali ini. Sayalah yang paling bebas dari pengaruh PAP. Dan saya akan juga memberi Anda sokongan sebagai suara untuk menyatukan rakyat. Saya layak menjadi presiden kerana saya bersatu hati dengan Anda demi untuk kemajuan negara. Saya juga ingin mengucapkan selamat berpuasa dan salam Idul Fitri. Undilah saya sebagai presiden baru Anda. Terima kasih. Let me speak in Mandarin. 全体新加坡同胞们，晚上好。今年5月，新加坡选民已经选出了一个政府。现在你们又有另一个机会选出一名总统来监督与制衡政府，让政府加倍努力工作，提高人民各种福利。总统要有效地履行职责，就不能与执政党有任何联系，这样才有足够的道德权威来制衡政府，不会因为过去与执政党的联系而影响任何决定。其他3位候选人都跟执政党有联系，还是20-30年的党员，他们所想的、所做的，甚至所呼吸的空气，都属于人民行动党的模式，怎么能够改变他们的思维？更不用说去改变和说服过去的同僚和朋友。我跟他们不一样，我从来不是执政党党员，所以不带任何的情感包袱，也因此更能畅所欲言，更能毫无顾忌地对政府进行监督和制衡。我为充当政府的良知，也为代表人民的良知。经济前景不明朗，总统也有责任引领国人共同应付未来经济上的种种挑战。因此，当选总统后，我会好好跟政府合作，渡过难关，保住新加坡的稳定。我也希望跟政府共同制定一套经济理念，使所有政策都以全体新加坡人的福利为核心。如果政府要拨出自购资源，回应年轻国人在教育和事业的需求，协助家庭应付高涨的生活费，确保年长者获得充足的医疗照顾，让有特殊需要的孩子获得广泛资源，还有为您的公积金存款给予足够保障，确保人人安享晚年。如果政府需要动用国家储备金来应付以上的需求，我会给予支持。我们当前的社会状况更需要总统来弥合社会裂痕， 团结民心。当选后，我为本作关怀的心，以最大的诚意履行职责，为全民打造更好的社会。我最亲爱的新加坡同胞们，我的使命需要您的帮助才能完成，让我们齐心协力，让我充当您的声音，充当这个国家的良心，一起实现这个使命。记住8月27日星期六，投下您的神圣一票，给陈如师。英文名字是叫丹基社。选票上有个新的票字旁，打个叉字。谢谢。